Hi there, welcome to Book Club. Welcome back to another episode. Today we are going to be uh, reading passages from chapter 6 of All About Love by Bell Hooks. My name is Nandini, and if you're watching this, you're watching it on my channel, Figuring It Out Alive, and I would love for you to join the discussion, not just in the comments below, but I'm actually recording these live, and the meetup group link is in the description of this video. So check it out because there might be more events that you can join and then you can be part of these discussions live with me. Now let's move on to chapter 6, Values, Living by a Love Ethic. And I believe it was in this chapter that something in this chapter made me write, "This is my new Bible," or "This is my Bible." Yeah, there is a part like that I've written. Okay, so wow. Right from the beginning, there's a large quote I want to read. Awakening to love can happen only as we let go of our obsession with power and domination. Culturally, all spheres of American life, politics, religion, the workplace, domestic households, intimate relations, should and could have as their foundation a loving ethic. The underlying values of a culture and its ethics shape and inform the way we speak and act. A love ethic presupposes that everyone has the right to be free, to live fully and well. To bring a love ethic to every dimension of our lives, our society would need to embrace change. This is one of the most powerful yet straightforward chapters I've read so far in this book. Moving on, individuals who choose to love can and do alter our lives in ways that honor the primacy of a love ethic. And this reminded me of all the angels who have helped me in my life, especially during my school days, in order to make me feel safe and powerful and just be there. Just be there to listen to me. We do this by choosing to work with individuals we admire and respect, by committing to give our all to relationships, by embracing a global vision wherein we see our lives and our fate as intimately connected to those of everyone else on the planet. In the middle of page 88 in my version, living by a love ethic, we learn to value loyalty and a commitment to sustained bonds over material advancement. While careers and making money remain important agendas, they never take precedence over valuing and nurturing human life and well-being. Further down, the widespread assumption that ethical behavior takes the fun out of life is false. Behaving unethically with no thought to the consequences of our actions is a bit like eating tons of junk food. While it may taste good, in the end, the body is never really adequately nourished and remains in a constant state of lack and longing. Our souls feel this lack when we act unethically, behaving in ways that diminish our spirits and dehumanize others. On page 89, testimony in New Age writing affirms, embracing a love ethic transforms life for the good. Now, this next part was really quite intriguing. It's so political. I love it. Yet a lot of this information only reaches those of us who have class privilege, and often individuals whose lives are rich in spiritual and material well-being, who have diverse friends from all walks of life, who nourish their personal integrity. Those people tell the rest of the world these things are impossible to come by. I'm talking here about the many prophets of doom who tell us that racism will never end, sexism is here to stay, the rich will never share their resources. We would all be surprised if we could enter their lives for a day. Much of what they are telling us cannot be had, they have. But in keeping with the capitalist-based notion of well-being, they really believe there is not enough to go around, that the good life can only be had by a few. This made me think of Eminem and how his lyrics are so incredibly misogynistic, and yet he proclaims to be like, doing it all for his daughters, and his daughters matter to him, and um he loves his daughters. His daughters are female too, and his biological daughter, Haley Jade, has a podcast of her own. And in the comment section of that podcast, everyone's like, "Oh, it's well, quite often it's all about Eminem." And people are like, "Oh, she's so well adjusted." And like, being a fan of Eminem, I'm aware of the fact that she was a homecoming queen, and she had a really good GPA, which is a grade point average, which basically means like she scored really well in her exams, both in definitely in high school. I don't know about her university. I've not paid attention and haven't researched all that. But I guess what I mean to say is that people who espouse these beliefs about society and it not being a safe place and blah blah blah, and women should do this and men should do that, have you seen what their own lives are like? Have you seen what they tend to consume? Like, it's so weird and ironic to me when I see men, not just men, but households, families, including women, who are completely like they themselves embody the patriarchy. Okay, women who are embodying completely the patriarchy. The way that they police what they wear and what their children wear, and I'm specifically talking about the female children, the girls and the young women, right? What they wear versus what they're watching every day on television, the music videos they're watching. What are you watching, bro? And you know what they would say? They would say, well, it's because of that that we don't want this to happen. But you're consuming it. Yo, this is part of this chapter, guys. It's part of the chapter, so let's just carry on. Hmm. Now, what does Bell Hooks believe? I definitely believe we can all change our minds and our actions. I stressed that this faith I have in humanity, right? I stressed that this faith was not rooted in a utopian longing, but rather that I believed this because of our nation's history, of the many individuals who have offered their lives in service of justice and freedom. When challenged by folks who have claimed that these individuals were exceptions, I agreed, but then talked about the necessity of changing our thinking so that we see ourselves as being like the one who does change rather than among who refuse to change. Yeah. What made these individuals exceptional was not that they were any smarter or kinder than their neighbors, but that they were willing to live the truth of their values. Okay, here's a quote that my science teacher from back in middle school/high school, who started his own NGO at one point, this was part of one of his pamphlets, and I still remember it, though I forgot part of it, but it's by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I genuinely believe that is true, right? It's always a small group of people who create change. At the bottom of page 19, my version, they are afraid to act. Ooh, what is this about? They are afraid to act on what they believe because it would mean challenging this conservative status quo. This is once again referring to the people who think, oh, you're being too idealistic, or, snap back to reality, bro. This is the way things are. It's impossible for society to change. They are afraid to act on what they believe because it would mean challenging the conservative status quo. I don't even think that's true. I think they themselves are afraid to admit how much they gain from the status quo. The fact that they are powerful enough to live their lives, and sometimes, like, even if they're all beaten up and they're not happy at all about how things are and how little they're gaining and things like that. They're so entrenched in believing that this is the only way society can be, that they're not just afraid, but they would be angry if society changed. Because I know a lot of people who are so bitter about taxation, who are so bitter about the reservation system in India, that they're like, no, we want everyone else to face the same crap that we did. Bitter, bitter people. It's kind of like how there are individuals who literally they exist, individuals who would be incredibly upset if all student loans were forgiven, because it'd be like, well, I'd been paying back my student loans for like the last decade. What about me? Bro, it's going to benefit everybody. Everybody. And the fact that you paid back your student loans, that's okay. Are you okay now? Like, I think, just use that as a way to not accept the things that you find to be unfair in society. Carrying on, page 90 to 91. Refusal to stand up for what you believe in weakens individual morality and ethics, as well as those of the culture. You listening? No wonder, then, that we are a nation of people, the majority of whom, across race, class, and gender, claim to be religious, claim to believe in the divine power of love, and yet collectively remain unable to embrace a love ethic and allow it to guide behavior, especially if doing so would mean supporting radical change. Fear of radical changes leads many citizens of our nation to betray their minds and hearts. Yet we are all subjected to radical changes every day. We face them by moving through fear. These changes are usually imposed by the status quo. That's so true. I've written over here COVID. I've written over here online payments. Like I was, one of my aunts told me like I could just pay you through Google Pay or something, right? Or Paytm. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, you use those things? And she was like, yeah, I mean, I was really afraid to use them earlier, but then my son and my husband were like, no, you have to learn how to do it. And now I know how to do it and I do it very easily. Okay, you learn to change that. We can all learn to change things. COVID is the best example I could use of how the entire world changed within a day, within a month, within one news announcement, within one political piece of document signed. Oh my God. For example, the revolutionary new technologies have led us all to accept computers. Our willingness to embrace this unknown shows that we are all capable of confronting fears of radical change, that we can cope. An overall cultural embrace of a loving ethic would mean that we would all oppose much of the public policy conservatives condone and support. And I wrote, haha, to that because it's so true. It's so true. Like, if we were to embrace a loving ethic in this country, in India, nothing would be the same. Culturally, anyway. Page 91, bottom. Society's collective fear of love. And I really circled this. Society's collective fear of love. Like, it was only a few chapters ago that we talked about how taboo it is to talk about love, even in a personal dimension. Like, how many of us are comfortable talking about love to our relatives, to our families. Like, the word love, like, how, like, genuinely, like, I'm asking the people who are watching this, how comfortable are you using the word love in a discussion with the people in your own family? And it could be love for anything. It could be love for a subject. It could be love for a person, love for a career, love for the desire that you have, that you want to, love for a new home, love for the person you're talking to, love for your own family, your own siblings, your own partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your spouse. Are you comfortable even mentioning the word love to even reveal how much you love something or someone? I wonder. Society's collective fear of love must be faced if we are to lay claim to a love ethic, sorry, that can inspire us and give us courage to make necessary changes. Yep. Okay, we're back to Eric Fromm now. There's a very long quote by him, and it is so good. I've written golden next to it. Society must be organized in such a way that man's social loving nature is not separated from his social existence, but becomes one with it. If it is true, as I have tried to show, that love is the only sane and satisfactory response to the problem of human existence, then any society which excludes relatively the development of love must, in the long run, perish of its own contradiction with the basic necessities of human nature. Indeed, to speak of love is not preaching, for the simple reason that it means to speak of the ultimate and real need in every human being. To have faith in the possibility of love as a social, not only exceptional individual phenomenon, is a rational faith based on the insight into the very nature of man, human. That's the end of the quote by Eric Fromm. Then Bell Hooks carries on. Faith enables us to move past fear. We can collectively regain our faith in the transformative power of love by cultivating courage, the strength to stand up for what we believe in, to be accountable both in word and deed. Yeah. And also for finding the evidence, right? Like the more I feel like, how many pages are left? Because this is what she wrote right at the end as well. It's like when we have the courage to act from a place when we have the courage to act from a place of love, when we are embodying love, which was my whole mission when I decided to read this book. I wanted to become an embodiment of love in this powerful calm of knowing this is what I embody, and I'm not going to compromise that for anyone or for anything. And I'm going to bend reality to my will. And I am doing that, like things are going to be done in the most loving possible ways. And I'm going to be so loving to myself. And I'm going to be so loving to everybody because everyone is in some way connected to me, But I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here, but when we can have the courage to be loving, we will realize how responsive people are to that. And so we will change the world just through that small thing, just through that one action, and receiving that response will be a whole new reality for that person and for you. All right, now on page 93, as we love, fear necessarily leaves. Contrary to the notion that one must work to attain perfection, oh, perfect, perfect. Oh, there was this whole passage in the Bible. I'm going to go back and read that first, okay? On page 92, it's the second paragraph. I'm especially fond of this biblical passage in the first epistle of John, which tells us, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. I love that it says fear hath torment. Fear has torment within it. Oh my God. Words are just so powerful, man. Words can just create a whole new reality just by the placement of certain individual words. It's so good. I'm going to start over. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. And then Bell Hooks goes on to talk about the word perfect. This is something that she had read and memorized and had pondered over since she was a child. And the word perfect love just kept, sort of poking at her. And, without getting too much into it, I'm going to read a few more parts here. As we love, fear necessarily leaves. Contrary to the notion that one must work to attain perfection, this outcome does not have to be struggled for. It just happens. It is the gift perfect love offers. To receive the gift, we must first understand that there is no fear in love, but we do fear, and fear keeps us from trusting in love. And I've written here, I'll have to reread or re-listen to this book every month this year. This is my Bible, okay? So I think just as we had decided that the word love would not be a noun, but instead a verb, and the verb must contain all these elements within it, Bell Hooks was like, oh, perfect love. So to perfect, she turned the word perfect. Not, I don't think it was just her, but like her mind interpreted it as to refine, like to perfect something. So it's like only through repeated action that you can perfect something, right? Just like when you're learning how, like, let's say you're learning a new language. I'm an English teacher. You're learning a new language and you learn a few phrases and then you try to use them. They sound a little clunky in your mouth. It's not sitting quite right, and people are still responding to you. And then the more you use them, it becomes so smooth, right? And similarly, I think once a person decides to be loving and decides to be totally motivated by love, by good, they cannot immediately just change and transform and become this fairy sprinkling love dust on everything, right? It's like we have to be aware, and I think that's about to come up, and take action from a place of love as far as we're able to, as far as, like we only have certain tools available to us, but it takes courage to sometimes even use those tools to serve love, right? To come from a loving place. We use those tools, we do things with love, boom, do it. Hmm, cool. It kind of worked. I think things could be a little better. Let me see if I have some other tools. Okay, next instance. We use a slightly different tool in a way we've never usually used it lovingly, and then we try it and it works. There's some hiccups. Okay, let's try again. Let's try it a little smoother. Oh my gosh, it worked. To perfect love, to perfect the act of loving through repeated courage. And courage is the opposite of fear, isn't it? So as we love, fear necessarily leaves. I love it. Okay, carrying on. Page 93, second paragraph. Cultures of domination rely on the cultivation of fear as a way to ensure obedience. We are all terribly afraid most of the time. As a culture, we are obsessed with the notion of safety. Yet we do not question why we live in states of extreme anxiety and dread. Fear is the primary force upholding structures of domination. It promotes the desire for separation, the desire not to be known. When we are taught that safety lies within the sameness, then difference of any kind will appear as a threat. When we choose to love, we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation. The choice to love is a choice to connect, to find ourselves in the other. Wow. On page 94, this turning is done. Okay, so she talks about something which is like about conversion, turning to love or something like that. I wasn't really able to connect with that too much, but there was this one line that I wanted to mention. This turning is done through one's own affirmation of one's worth, an affirmation fueled by the concern for others. In an attempt to ward off life-threatening despair, more and more individuals are turning toward a love ethic. Further down, being aware enables us to critically examine our actions, to see what is needed so that we can give care, be responsible, show respect, and indicate a willingness to learn. This is once again calling back to Bell Hooks' comprehensive definition of love, which includes care, commitment, trust, respect, affection, pleasure, knowledge. a responsibility, along with open and honest communication. That was off the top of my head. Haha. Okay. Page 94, right at the bottom, on to page 95. There are these two huge sections I'm going to read, okay? We see in movies, oh, this is all about media. I love this part. We see in movies in which people are represented as being in love, who never talk with one another, who fall into bed without ever discussing their bodies, their sexual needs, their likes and dislikes. Indeed, the message received from the mass media is that knowledge makes love less compelling, that it is ignorance that gives love its erotic and transgressive edge. Vomit. These messages are often brought to us by profiteering producers who have no clue about the art of loving, who substitute their mystified visions because they do not really know how to genuinely portray loving interaction. And this is where our power comes up. Were we collectively to demand that our mass media portray images that reflect love's reality, it would happen. Not without resistance. I mean, it takes time, but it would happen if we like every interview that exists in, well, at least on YouTube, all the actors are like, well, it's a film industry. If it's an industry, it's all motivated by money. So that's why certain actors get paid more because they have a fan base, and then the fans like will watch whatever the actor is in. Actors, you have power. You have power to choose. You have power to choose love. And us as consumers, we have power. We have power to choose as well. Were we collectively to demand that our mass media portray images that reflect love's reality, it would happen. This change would radically alter our culture. The mass media dwells on and perpetuates an ethic of domination and violence because our image makers, not God, okay? Literally the people who make mass media, because our image makers have more intimate knowledge of these realities than they have with the realities of love. We all know what violence looks like. All scholarship in the field of cultural studies focusing on a critical analysis of the mass media, whether pro or con, indicates that images of violence, particularly those that involve action and gore, capture the attention of viewers more than still, peaceful images. The small groups of people who produce most of the images we see in this culture have heretofore shown no interest in learning how to represent images of love in ways that will capture and stir our cultural imagination and hold our attention. If the work they did was informed by a love ethic, they would consider it important to think critically about the image they create. And that would mean thinking about the impact of these images, the ways they shape culture and inform how we think and act in everyday life. Well, honestly, man, people need to wake up. These are the people in power. People who are in media, they have power to shape our culture. Culture is a reflection of the media. Media is a reflection of our culture. Carrying on, this time on page 96. Even though some individual scholars try to tell us there is no direct connection between images of violence and the violence confronting us in our lives, the common sense truth remains. We are all affected by the images we consume and by the state of mind we are in when watching them. If consumers want to be entertained, and the images shown us as entertaining images of violent dehumanization, it makes sense that these acts become more acceptable in our daily lives and that we become less likely to respond to them with moral outrage or concern. Were we all seeing more images of loving human interaction, it would undoubtedly have a positive impact on our lives. A few lines further down. These images will not change until patriarchal thinking and perspectives change. Individual women and men who do not see themselves as victims of patriarchal power find it difficult to take seriously the need to change patriarchal thinking. Sorry, the need to challenge and change patriarchal thinking, but re-education is always possible. Another line down, since individuals committed to advancing patriarchy are producing most of the images we see, they have an investment in providing us with representations that reflect their values and the social institutions they wish to uphold. Duh. Patriarchy, like any system of domination, for example, racism, relies on socializing everyone to believe that in all human relations, there is an inferior and superior party. One person is strong, the other is weak, and that it is therefore natural for the powerful to rule over the powerless. To those who support patriarchal thinking, maintaining power and control is acceptable by whatever means, including by being sweet and nice, ladies. That is you still perpetuating patriarchal thinking, even if you're being really sweet about it, you still are doing it. Naturally, anyone socialized to think this way would be more interested in and stimulated by the scenes of domination and violence rather than by scenes of love and care. Yet, they need a consumer audience to whom they can sell their product. Therein lies our power to demand change. Another huge passage that goes from page 97 on to page 98. Patriarchal thinking is still the norm for those in power. This does not mean we do not have the right to demand change. We have power as consumers. We can exercise that power all the time by not choosing to invest time, energy, or funds to support the production and dissemination of mass media images that do not reflect life-enhancing values, that undermine a love ethic. This is not meant to be an argument for censorship. Most of the evils in our world are not created by the mass media. For example, clearly the mass media does not create violence in the home. Domestic violence was widespread even when there was no television, but everyone knows that all forms of violence are glamorized and made to appear interesting and seductive by mass media. The producers of these images could just as easily use mass media to challenge and change violence. And they do it so badly, even when they pretend to do it, honestly. When images we see condone violence, whether they lead any of us to be more violent or not, they do affirm the notion that violence is an acceptable means of social control, that it is fine for one individual or group to dominate another individual or group. This is not love. This is not love. We already talked about how if abuse exists, it cannot be love. It doesn't matter if it's a parent or child. It doesn't matter if it's a husband or wife. It doesn't matter if it's a boy and his mother. It doesn't matter if it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Domination cannot exist in any social situation where a love ethic prevails. Jung's insight should be remembered. When love is present, the desire to dominate and exercise power cannot rule the day. Hear that, parents? That's what I wrote here. Hear that, parents? Your love is conditional. In fact, not love at all if it has the expectations of your children or wives being obedient slaves to your words or to your intentions or whatever it is, okay? It's not love then. It could be affection. It could be like, oh, I care for you and I keep you safe and I feed you. Why? Because you need to serve me? Oh, that is not love. It's not love, okay? Further down, if all public policy was created in the spirit of love, we would not have to worry about unemployment, homelessness, schools failing to teach children, or addiction. Y-E-S. 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 Yes! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark is what I've written, and that's how I feel. We're nearly at the end now. Here are some lines from the Kentucky poet Wendell Berry. He writes about citizens of a smaller sort of community. I'm just going to read snippets of the quotes. Snippets of this poem that has been quoted, okay? So they are people who do not believe that they can succeed by defeating or destroying or selling or using up everything but themselves. They doubt that good solutions can be produced by violence. They want to preserve the precious things of nature, of human culture, and pass them on to their children. They see that no commonwealth or community of interest can be defined by greed. They know that work ought to be necessary. It ought to be good. It ought to be satisfying and dignifying to the people who do it, and genuinely useful and pleasing to the people for whom it's done. And Bell Hooks goes on to write that she spends a lot of her time in New York City, but she lives in a cooperative apartment building where we all know each other. We protect and nurture our collective well-being. We strive to make our home place a positive environment for everyone. Nice. The last paragraph says, to live our lives based on the principles of a love ethic, showing care, respect, knowledge, integrity, and the will to cooperate, we have to be courageous. Know that when we let our light shine, we draw to us and are drawn to other bearers of light. We are not alone. We are not alone. We're not alone. So please join me for the next book club meeting. Details are in the description. These videos are posted much slower than the weekly readings we do, which happen every Saturday. The next one should be on chapter 7, which is Greed, Simply Love, and number 8, Community, Loving Communion. Let's do it. So I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to reading your comments, so please do share them. I'm happy to be doing this because this is so meaningful to me. It really matters to me that I start really putting this in the center. You know, the center of my being should be undiluted with this purpose of being loving, of sharing love, of being guided by love. So thank you very much for watching. If you've come to this part, wow, thank you. I love you. Thank you so much. My name is Nandini, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!